Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me again. This is Jasmine, your host of the Ethereal Pathways podcast. I am just doing something new the last couple episodes. I think I did mention in my last episode, I believe it was 27, why I've been gone for a month, what I've been going through. And I just wanted to do a real quick video this time and just talk a little bit more specifically about some other things I've been going through in regards to my personal journey of healing and self-realization, just really learning who I am as a soul, as a person. I just turned 47 last month. Well, not last month now. Now we're in February. Excuse me. But I just turned 47 in December. And I'm getting to that age where, I'm just feel like I'm just now starting to really learn who I am as a soul, as a person. And a lot of that, happens to a lot of people. But a lot of it, I believe, is because of the inner work that I'm doing, the personal work I'm doing internally, as well as boundary setting with others and other things like work and having that work-life balance and things. I feel like I'm just now catching up, and I feel, and it's hard not to judge yourself when you're looking at other people that are younger than you, that are you deem as further along in their path of, being strong, independent women, or more spiritual or whatever. But we can't compare ourselves to other people, and I have to constantly remind myself of doing that. I get stuck in my head all the time overthinking things. But I wanted to share a little bit about some of the things, like I said, I was going through. One of the things I was going through was realizing I had more patterns than I thought I did. I did lightly mention that in the last video about when I've been gone for a month, what's been going on. And that has been pretty eye-opening for me. It's been very hard. Sorry, that was my dog whining. She's looking at me whining. That's been very difficult for me because, and really for anybody that does that, when you start realizing you have toxic patterns and then you look back at the patterning in your family line and how you were raised, how they treated you as a child, you start to see the patterns that go further back than you thought they did. And then sometimes it goes further back than that. If you had your grandparents more in your life as a child or growing up, you can sometimes see it goes back 3 or 4 generations, the same patterning. And, that's just the way people raise their kids, whatever. But, you have a choice. Everybody has a choice to stop those patterns. And I've been talking a lot about this in many of my episodes. We always have a choice, even though we may feel stuck. We may feel, oh, I can't change the tradition of my family. A lot of times it's cultural. You always have a choice. Always have a choice. You can be that person that changes that pattern and stops it and ends it, and it ends with you. And that's something that has been really big with me, that I've made up my mind after this last divorce that I was going to really work on myself heavily to stop a lot of these toxic patterns that happened with my parents, generational, and just do whatever I could, do the best I could to try to stop them with me, and it ends with me. And it's been very difficult, I went back to, counseling. I'm kind of probably gonna have to step that up more often. I do what I can financially because things are pretty tight right now. Which is why I don't have my software, to have my intro music and, graphics and things, because I had to cut everything out right now because of finances. But I still wanted to share it, and I still wanted to, help people with this. So, a lot of the reasons we feel this way is it's just toxic patterning that comes up in your life, and you don't know why you do them. It's subconscious. When you react to certain things, it's triggers. A lot of that's wounding, from trauma from your childhood or, earlier in your life. But some of it is just toxic patterning. We were raised and conditioned to believe a certain way, to go to church or, synagogue, whatever it is, every Sunday, or you're going, or XYZ, fill in the blank. And, it takes a strong person to break that pattern. If you feel that that is not who you are on a soul level, on a personal level, you have every choice to make a different decision to change that. I'm not saying that, you have to be rebellious, but I do think a certain point of that, a certain amount of that is important, because you are an individual, but you're also part of the collective mind, of the collective consciousness, where you are all connected on a spiritual level, energetically as well. And when one person makes that shift, just think about it. When one person makes that shift, if we are all collectively minded and, energetically connected, which we are, like I said, one person makes a decision to go a different way, to stand up for themselves, to stand up for what's right, even in some cases, against their culture, against their family traditions, against their belief systems. It could be limiting belief systems of lack, whatever, faith, whatever. That person helps the collective change, or at least be open to change their ways, and change and go a different path in their situations, in their life. And the more people that collectively want the change and start to take actions to work on themselves, to work towards change in their life internally, and take an external action, limiting, setting boundaries, removing yourself from situations that you no longer feel aligns with you no longer feel as, that helps the collective make those changes and be open to make those changes. So don't feel like you're alone in making those changes and you're too scared to go out on your own. We have to take those steps to make those changes, because it helps everybody in the end. It will help everybody. You'll even inspire people in your own circle of influence, where, it could be family, it could be coworkers, it could be just neighbors. You will inspire them to make those changes that are better for their life. They could be in toxic family situations or whatever and have been putting up with it. And just by seeing you make those changes and seeing how you're glowing and you're happier now, and you're making positive changes in other ways in your life because of that, will inspire them to make those changes. That's already happened in my life with coworkers and other people I know in my life. I've already inspired people to make those changes that make them happier, or are on the way to make them happier. It's incrementally, as you change more, make those changes, and actually inspire you, finding your highest joy and taking those actions towards that, and try to stay in that as much as you can, and try not to let the world, situations, drama going on around you drag you down. Remove yourself from those situations. That's what changes our society. That's what makes those drastic changes in, government and our society, is us collectively starting to take the individual steps to do that, and then inspiring others to do that just by your changes. So that's what I've been working on lately. Another thing I've noticed was this pattern. I think I mentioned it in my last video, was me and my daughter's relationship, and then having a man come in our relationship that was not her father. Me being in my first dating relationship right now, outside of my second marriage, I've been divorced 2 years now, last month. It's been difficult. It's been a learning experience, because I've never had a kid before going into a dating relationship after a divorce. And yes, I did take time off. For those of you who are new, I took a year and a half, almost 2 years off, really, of working on myself, being by myself, being a single mother, and working on my relationship with my daughter, working on myself internally, and making some of those needed changes, and trying to find who I am again, trying to find what inspires me and makes me happy. And this podcast is one of these major things that inspires me and makes me happy, because I want to help others. I want to share the inspiration. I want to share the difficulties and things going on in my life. And then you get to see the outcomes in every which way, the way I'm sharing it here. Because we need change in this world, but we have to be the change ourselves. It starts within us, each of us, and it is like a domino effect. One of the other things that I was dealing with, and I'm going to try to keep this short because I got to get ready to go on to work here in a minute. I'm working from home, is, realizing your triggers from your emotional wounds. That's something I've been having come up a lot in this relationship. And it's not like we're meaning to purposely do that. We mirror each other's wounds, abandonment wounds, and triggers a lot of times. And especially in certain relationships you attract into your life. You attract somebody on the same vibrational level as you, including when you make a major leap in your vibrational state. You'll attract more people on that level, on that new level you're at. And so they'll have very similar experiences, wounds, the level they're at on personal work, energetically, whatever is going to be very similar to yours. So that's what happened to me. And we're triggering each other's wounds, not meaning to, but it's just in course of having the relationship. So when we have insecurities, when I feel not adequate enough, or, have a bout of that come up, I say something that, gives it away, obviously, and it triggers the other person. So that's something I've been starting to notice more of is my patterns. That's something my therapist told me to start being more mindful of, is how I'm reacting to certain things I'm noticing are triggers, and start noticing what was said or done right before that made me feel that way. And then journal on it, or, do introspection, think on it, and try to figure out, what that core wound is, where it came from my childhood. And that's something, my reader friend Molly helped me with too. She directed me to do that as well. So that's a lot of what I've been going through, feeling, inadequate in relationships, feeling a little bit of jealousy. And I don't want to say a little bit. There's at times it could be a little bit much, not a lot. I'm not crazy jealous, but there's bouts of it that come up. I'm not saying I'm not jealous, but I'm not saying I'm super jealous. It's just like waves of it that come up, and I question things, and then I stop myself. So I started noticing ways I was doing that, and really I would say, who's this person you're talking to? And, he does have a lot of male and female friends. He's well known in our community, among both, men and women. And so, I would question things, but his actions have always been consistent to reflect that anything he says, he backs it up with his actions. He's not doing questionable behaviors. He's not, skipping out on when he says he's going to be calling me or showing up. Things like that are very consistent. So there was no reason for me to question certain things, and there was always good reasoning and good things being said, but he limits those interactions. So, and he's very honest about them and upfront about them. He always tells me about them. So I never feel that, but I had that happen in my ex relationship, where that brought up a lot of questions, and there was a lot of questionable behavior. And so I'm having to deal with those triggers coming up. Oh, this reminds me of that. And then you go into a reflex reaction. So that's been part of what I'm going through. I will share a little bit more. I kind of want to get back, get to work now. But I just wanted to do a quick little video, less than 15 minutes long, to share a little bit about that. I'll go into another video and I'll share a little bit more detail. If you guys want me to, I'm just going to do it anyway. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day or evening whenever you're watching this. And I leave you in love and light. God bless.